Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Swisspreneur. Today I'm meeting Markus Popp. He's one of the founders of Till Late and had a lot of experience how it is to build a company and then actually failing tremendously. I want to learn about his failure, but also about his experience he gathered after his long business career as a startup entrepreneur. So let's go and chat with him. Hi Markus.
Hi Gregor.
Great to be here in Zurich. Where are we here?
We're at Kaufleuten Club, which basically is the mother of all clubs here in Zurich, have been successful for like dozens of years, and one of the key places, of course, for our first startup.
So can you tell us a little bit about your first startup, Till Late, which brought you here several times, I guess?
Yeah, quite a few times, true. Well, the first startup we did was developed into the biggest party website in Switzerland and in Europe even. And it was actually great fun. We started out during our studies. It was quite a coincidence because we just saw that if you post pictures of people from events, at the time it was just private birthday parties, if you do that, the stats of the visitors are really skyrocketing, and we somehow had the feeling that that must be the base for a potential business, because we also at the same time read an article that the younger audience is more difficult to reach by the classical media. Mm-hmm. So, and those two things together, in our head at least, gave us the idea for the business model.
And were you all entrepreneurs? Like, did you know that you want to be entrepreneurs, or did you, like, was that a coincidence that you said, we love parties and we are just like guiding it through and let's combine like something we do anyway with something entrepreneurial?
Well, I was repairing stuff when I was like 12 and 14 and thought I had a business. And,
okay.
And when I was 17, 18, I started to organize parties. And there I somehow had this epiphany moment when I drove to St. Gallen to meet the sponsoring guy from a liquor brand.
Okay.
And I still remember that moment when I was driving to St. Gallen and I was going like, wow, this being on my own, being able to decide everything myself, somehow that felt good, and that that was the moment where I really realized that this entrepreneurial activities actually fit with my interests, and so so therefore I knew quite early, and during the studies at ETH Zurich, it was very, very stressful because of all the exams, etc. So there the entrepreneurial activity declined a little bit, and then when coming up with these 2 points, and hence the business model, or at least the idea for the business model, then the entrepreneurial spirit came back again.
Yeah. So you adapted, like later on you went more into business, and is this something like you would recommend to maybe start with engineering and then add on the other things? Did that help you like on your entrepreneurial path, or do you think it doesn't matter, like looking back you should never joined university and just went right into entrepreneurship right away, or what's your take on that?
Well, I think having the technical background first, I think that's always a good idea, because most of economics, in my opinion, is common sense made difficult. So you can easily learn that on the job in an MBA or whatever. And the technical stuff, I think that's much more complex to really get that. So I would definitely recommend to start out with the technology. And I think also the mix between the technology and the economical aspects is really something I would recommend to anyone, because a CEO who just knows the economics but hasn't got a clue of the technology, had never developed a website, never developed a software, the credibility with the developers is just lower. Then if you can say, I mean, if a developer can tell you, okay, that's 3 days, but actually it's 3 hours of work, then I think it's always good to really mix these aspects. And not going to university at all for us, well, it simply wasn't an option, because when you told someone in 1999 that you're going to do your own business, then it was somewhat like what are you doing? You are at ETH and you want to do this shaky
party
little
website photos.
Exactly. That was really. I mean the reactions were from like, oh, you're completely crazy to yeah, try it, and if you are failing, then you still can take your diploma out of your drawer and apply for a proper job.
You started during university, so you when the end of university came closer, you got going with your co-founders. Did you all meet on campus?
For us, it turned out to be very cool. It was super stressful because we had the lectures and all the work and even the diploma thesis at the end. I, for myself, had a part-time job to get the money in, to pay my flat in Zurich, and then the own company, which was really super stressful. So definitely we didn't sleep that much in these times. But on the other hand, what was really cool is actually that you don't have to defend the lifestyle, right? I mean, your flat or your room in the is around 600 francs, and you're used to cantina food, and therefore you can really start with a very low cost structure, which I would definitely recommend, because I saw a lot of founders who actually had problems to refrain from all the stuff, from the nice car, from the nice flat, etc. And actually, the material stuff hindered them to be an entrepreneur, which, in my opinion, is pretty sad.
Yeah, got it. So you would say it's not so much the age, but it's actually the economical footprint someone has. So it is, of course, that younger people don't use as much money as when you are already a little bit older and you bought your car and you signed your contract or you bought your house. But in the end, you would recommend to everyone who is getting started to try to lower the economical footprint as much as possible.
Definitely, it gives you more runway, right? I mean. And if you come to an investor and say I need $15,000 per month,
it's going to be a hard.
They will show you the exit. Yeah, exactly. So therefore, and for me, it's always it really gives me this kind of freedom also. I mean, we're not dependent of anyone. And I defended actually my low cost lifestyle, because it just, the material stuff doesn't really motivate me, which on the other hand gives me a lot of freedom. I don't have to ask anyone to do anything. And I'm not dependent of the favor of an investor or something. I can just do whatever I want, and that feeling actually is super important to me.
And how did that turn out with Till-Date? Because I believe you took external money. So how did that how did that play, or would you do something now looking back at that? Would you do something different? And when did you take money, and why did you take money? Like now hearing what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we actually started out and invested all the money we had. Like, we started out with 4 private digital cameras, like we have, which we had as private persons. We started with our private notebooks, my old Volkswagen Golf, and an IKEA table at the flat of Silvan and Andre, and then just invested all the money into servers and stuff, and I was really completely broke at the end of the studies. I even had to lend like 2,000 Swiss francs from Silvan to buy a new camera to be able to go to events,
the parties.
Exactly, and network with event organizers to get the first advertising revenues in.
Okay.
So we really like if when you're flying a plane, like the wheels would have touched the tree freeze, and then it went up again. So and the cool thing actually was that although we never had a business plan, from 2000, where we really started the company then, to 2007, the revenues always doubled, and we really, if you had a look at the statistics, we really achieved exactly the hockey stick so many founders put into their business plan. We were like in 2007, we were at like 6.6 million revenue only in Switzerland, and only advertising revenues, with I think like super profitable, like 35% of EBIT. And till that point, we actually were able to organically grow, to always reinvest the money. So also our salaries, we try to really keep them low as far as that was okay with the tax the tax government. Then we really were able to get this hockey stick, but only because every Swiss franc we earned was reinvested into the growth.
Right.
That was. And then,
but so there were no investors?
No investors at all, like the first 7 years. Yeah. But then we were like, we had so many advisors also telling us, yeah, but you're stupid. You have a highly profitable business in a market like Switzerland. Why don't you go to bigger markets like Germany, like France, like UK or Spain, for example? Which to us made sense, and we actually were thinking about, yeah, what are we going to do? We had first offers to exit, to have the company bought by bigger media houses, and we were going like, no, actually we would like to have this experience, and we would like to collect more experience in managing such a structure, and then. We saw actually that with that money we had, we were not able to roll out the market, all these markets, especially because we saw that in markets where already copies existed, it was much harder to get into the clubs.
Because they were already there, they were same nationality. Why should we work with these Swiss people?
Exactly. And if you come, yeah, but you're the original, then no one really cared. Yeah. Exactly. So on the one hand, we had the pressure to get into this market very quickly in order to avoid. And we saw that, for example, in Spain, we had a great CEO there, and in no time he managed to get the platform as the number one in the nightlife media sector, from what we did, and other markets where there are already competitors. I mean, the clubs were okay. There's another one asking for a collaboration.
But so you went actually all in, like in poker language it would be, you said, okay, we give away the Swiss entity, get money and use this money to build Europe. Was it a little bit that way, or? Well,
actually coming the idea with having a huge strategic investor in Switzerland was basically coming out of a strategy of growth, which we first developed. The idea there was to have a joint venture with the biggest media house with the same audience in every market, and like that we would have got quite a fast reach in this audience. And the second thing, of course, all the relation to the media agencies and the advertising agencies would have been far easier if we can say, hey, we have a joint venture with media house XY, which is already known in that market. And I think that was one of the very big mistakes we did. We changed this. We made the deals with 20 Minutes in Switzerland, like Tota Media, and which was a very cool collaboration with them. But then we changed the strategy into saying, no, let's get an investor on the group level. Which was one of the things the investor said, yeah, but in the most interesting market, you already have a strategic investor, and now I'm taking all the risk, basically, which was true, of course, and therefore that was one of the biggest mistakes, I think, in this growth capital search. Which was basically the biggest failure we had. Actually, we never got the growth capital to get outside Switzerland. And that was one of the biggest mistakes because this change in strategy actually was not really
did not work.
Yeah, it did not work at all.
Yeah. How did it feel when you realized it? Because you were like growing every year, you were doubling your revenues, and then 2006, 2007, you changed your strategy, and then it got so tremendously hard because actually you just wanted to grow even more, I guess.
Yeah, true.
But that didn't happen.
I mean, that was a terrible moment, of course. I mean, especially if you have to tell employees who make a great job in the operational area, like having growing visitor numbers, and then have to say, hey, we have to get rid of that department, for example, or of that country because it's simply not profitable yet, because we didn't get the growth capital. I mean, that were horrible moments, and especially after, like, you start a business which no one really believes in. If everybody tells you that you would never earn a dime with that, then you have like 7 years.
You prove it. Everything goes right.
Exactly true. Everything really went well, and then you tackle a big project, and this one is really going.
It's so big that it almost kills you.
Exactly. I mean, we had to really restructure the whole thing. We had to really get rid of companies. We had really to do layoffs. We had it was really a very, very bad time, and especially if you know, many people who if you told someone about the project, they actually were skeptical about, but are you going to be able to manage this decentralized organization? You have to imagine that in every city we needed someone taking care of the clubs, taking care of the photographers, and all that stuff, and people told us, but I mean, if you're in Zurich and you have to organize a team in Bern, that's 1 hour drive, right? But if you're in Barcelona and have to organize a team in Sevilla, probably you won't be able to manage that. And ironically, all that stuff which people doubted from an operational point of view, that worked out very well. Yeah. I mean, all the processes were structured by the software. 2/3 of the software we developed was process optimization, and 1/3, which people knew, was the photo galleries and the event calendar and the community part, and 2/3 behind it was just process optimization. And no one really doubted that with the revenue track record we had, that there could be a problem with the financing, because if you're doubling the income every year, and then basically no one really said. And ironically, that didn't work out, but all the rest actually worked without any problems.
So it's super hard to actually predict. Like when you are doing a startup, it's hard to predict where actually the failure could come from. It can be behind every new risk that you are taking. So you have to be, on one hand, you have to be super careful, but on the other hand, you also have to be realistic. Like if you just embark to an entrepreneurial journey and you think everything will go fine, probably not.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the point is, we had a kind of history of 7 years of having no clue, actually. We didn't have any experience in managing a media startup. I mean, if we first developed our first online process optimization in 2003, I think, and we stored all the client data on a web server. Back then, if you told someone that you're going to put all your client data, all your critical data onto a web server, they were going like, you definitely are crazy. And so we had no clue on the one hand, but it always worked out that we found a way. So at the moment we had the problem that the processes didn't scale, or at least we would have to employ a lot of people to be able to really fulfill these processes in the old-fashioned way. Then we developed this ERP and in the background, etc. So. It was like 7 years, finding a solution for everything. So, and then it was somewhat, somehow we will feel how the solution will be, and we will find a solution for these other challenges too, which to a certain extent was an illusion, because we simply didn't have the experience, we didn't have the management structure. The management structure was still the same as when we started, like very democratic. There was no one really responsible for the strategy, which we were always. So there was in French you say une diffusion de la responsabilité. No one really wanted to
take on the responsibility for it, right?
One thing, and the other thing is, if you would, for example, make a suggestion, I would say, yeah, that sounds good, sounds good, and I wouldn't want to get your suggestion out of the way, because perhaps it could be right, and that and of course with the crash of the stock market in August 2008 didn't really help.
What did it do to the team? Like when you are so successful, like you'd heard, like friends are embarking for this entrepreneurial journey, they are super successful, they are growing, and then you have this crash, you have this failure. How did you handle that?
Well, the team changed a lot during the first 7 years. I mean, you have this phase where the company is more or less a family, right? And you're barbecuing every noon together in front of the office and stuff, and at the moment you get 40, 50 people, you have to have departments and stuff like that. The organization changes greatly. So that was, and also if you, at the moment, a huge company buys a part of your company, the whole mindset also changes, what people expect from the company changes, etc. So, I mean, it was not that we had no change, and then at that moment everything was different. So the changes were part of the development, but of course, at the moment when not everything is just easy going and just everything is fine. There's a lot of changes in how people perceive the company, and for us, I mean, it was on the one hand, it was not the most relaxed time, but on the other hand, it was also super interesting to see how to manage a company in such a phase when not everything is going as you wished, actually.
But that's now really looking back. Like at the moment,
True.
then did you get in any fights like with Silvan? Did you had argues? Like were you disappointed? Did you like blame someone in the team, or did you blame an advisor, or was it like? Can you fill us in a little bit, like on the emotional part of what happened at that time?
No, actually, we never got into fights in the management because the relation between us was so tight, and there was never like a finger pointing and yeah, but you did and we did. At the end, that was a little bit the advantage of a very democratic structure, because then no one could really say it's your fault or it's my fault, or it was rather a collective thing to endure. I mean, it's and no one really said, okay, I'm leaving now. That's too much for me. So we were really enduring it together also. So until everything was structured in a way that it was future-proof again, everybody stayed on the boat, and only then, when everything was like structured in a way, the first founders actually left the company.
Maybe now looking back, is there something that you can say we would have done differently?
Well, one thing is definitely management structure. I mean, having someone has more experience in the whole strategic management of. I mean, at the time there was like 5, 6, 7 companies to manage. Having external board members, that was one mistake, which was definitely our mistake, that we, like, from the shareholders to the board members, management and team leaders were all the same person, so there was no control in, hey, what are you doing here? That's something. Then probably, if we would have done this, that would have had an influence into how we would have checked the, let's say, what does the market do at the moment. That would have had an influence on the development of the business model, like not relying that much on advertising stuff. So you see, it would have split up a lot of different areas to take action in.
Or what was the main driver that you didn't go and got hired by a big corporate and started to do consulting?
Good question. I mean, I think it was the will to really still just be able to be my own boss. I mean, to really set the culture myself, to decide myself what kind of projects I want to take on. I think that was really the main driver behind the new activities we did since 2010. That was not didn't have a lot to do with how attractive it seems to be an entrepreneur today. I think the whole ecosystem sometimes also goes a little bit over the top right now, implying a little bit that being a startup entrepreneur is just hanging out in cool workshops with walls where you can write on and having best espresso in your co-working space yes. I mean, sometimes you really get the impression, oh, cool! If I attend as many conferences, if I attend as many workshops, etc., then I have a successful startup. And no one tells you that.
That's not the case.
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, no one really waits for a new sales pitch, right? I mean, that's the hard truth when you after all that nice creative phase with a lot of espresso and stuff like that, and then you start to make your first sales calls, and you recognize, or you actually notice that no one with budget really waited for your sales call. Yeah. That's at the end the very unsexy part. A lot of people don't talk about, actually. They really mystify this entrepreneurial activity, and yeah, you really have a view of being an entrepreneur that also creates a lot of disappointment, in my opinion, because at the very end, a startup is nothing more than a P&L sheet, right? I mean, that's where the success of your startup is decided, and not the kind of coffee
espresso
beans.
Brand, yeah.
Exactly. Not the coffee beans are deciding whether your startup will be successful.
Yeah.
And neither the color of the tables you put into your office.
So you would say, on one hand, you would say it's a cool time to start a company because you have a lot of information available, much more than you had 20 or 10 years ago. But on the other hand, you say, hey, what we do with entrepreneurship right now, it's maybe a little bit a bubble of Post-its and espresso. So what would you recommend to someone who is starting right now?
I mean, there's one thing to. I mean, I don't want to say that everybody who starts a company is just wanting to drink espresso. That wouldn't be fair neither. I just see that that there are a lot of different motivators why you should start a company. Is it because you really want to set up an organization where you can get the culture right, and having your own organization where you can influence the culture? Is it because you have a passion for creating products and to see these products on the market? Is it because you want to get rich? You want to just have a financial exit of let's say like 10-20 million in 2 years? Could be a motivation too. But what I saw in these 17 years I did startups was also that there are a lot of hidden motivators. You did do a lot of stuff in an unconscious way. Like from my example, it was pretty weird actually, because I had developed in 7 years into a job I would never have applied for. Mm-hmm. I was the head of sales of all our organizations, and one of the unconscious motivators was because I always thought, managing a lot of people, that's really sexy and that's cool and that's what I want to do. But if I really have a look at me sitting in a meeting room and say, hey, Gregor, let's have a look at the results. Where are we? Why aren't we where we wanted to be?
That's not you. Yeah.
No, it's definitely not me, actually. Mm-hmm. And I just did it. And therefore, what I would recommend to people is really like what is really, if you really imagine yourself doing that stuff and trying to get rid of all these unconscious stuff, like stuff which lets you do tasks that you are not actually made for, mm-hmm. because all your friends at the university say, yeah, consulting, that's cool, or like managing people, that's cool, and you just follow that pattern, even if it's not really what you would want to do. I mean, so that's the first thing, I think, that
creating a job for you, actually creating something you want to do.
Exactly, and I always summarize that in the question: what's your personal vision for yourself as an entrepreneur? Mm-hmm. And it's totally okay if someone says, I want to get rich in 2 years. Mm-hmm. That could be one motivation, or to say, hey, I want to have my own organization, and then
what I'm doing is completely. I don't care what I'm doing, but I want to have my own company.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. That and then all what you do is can turn out completely different than if you just go after these unconscious pattern of what you think you could want to do. Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, like I'm asking myself, why is it so difficult actually to stay true to yourself and to follow this path? And I think what is happening maybe, and I'm interested in what's your take on that, because what I'm seeing is that also like investors, people from the outside tell the young entrepreneurs how it should be, like you should get money, you should do an IPO or a trade sale in the end. And I think, I don't know what you think about that, but I think that's like something which also doesn't help. Like I think we should be more honest about the whole entrepreneurial careers and the diversity, and not for everyone the same is the right thing.
Absolutely. I see the whole investment circus quite from the outside, because our startups mostly are self-funded. So therefore we are not participating in that. But I mean, as I see it, is that there are very different kind of investors. Some who had their own businesses, who know exactly what happened at the time when they were young entrepreneurs. So they are rather coaching them, and there are other ones who just really want to get their money being I don't know, multiplied by 10 in 2 years, which of course is the task of the founder to really choose wisely with who will be working. Therefore, but of course, I mean the economical pressure investors can make on the founders is definitely also one of the factors that are that are to be taken into account when talking about finding the right way as an entrepreneur. And it's I see it as some kind of freedom if I don't have to, and if I don't have this complexity to keep any investor happy.
Did you see that also with your ventures? Like you did some very, very successful ventures. You always stayed a little bit in the background, but during the last couple of years you had some very successful exits. Like there was a company called Sobrado, which was sold to Swiss Life. You help me if it's not right.
It's true.
It's true. You sold a company together with the founders, Equipia, to Xing. Did you see like a certain pattern, like that what all these companies in all these ventures, like where you said we never took external money or we never did this or never did that? Is there a certain pattern you can say?
Not really actually. I mean the common thing about it is that that everything that worked really was based on a huge persistence. I mean even if the situations get tough, staying alert, finding options, finding alternatives, how we can work on this situation, etc. I mean, also in these two exits we had in the last 7 years, also there, not everything just easily worked out. Also there, we sometimes had the situation that we really needed more money to
where the wheels hit the trees.
Exactly. I mean, and it's an illusion if you say that this is something which is not normal. I mean, that's rather the normal case.
Yeah.
And that's why I also think that we should stop stigmatizing failures, but rather talk about it and really say, hey, yeah, that went wrong. That was this. That was the constellation of factors that led to that situation. And it's much more. Whenever I have to make presentations for younger entrepreneurs, so often in the briefing for the speech there is show your success factors. I always say the success factors, you can read them in every book, on every blog, and it actually summarizes in 10 things successful entrepreneurs eat for breakfast and bullshit like that. I mean, you can really read all that stuff, but where we really made mistakes, whenever after the speech I talk to these students, they always say, hey, that was really cool that you didn't mystify entrepreneurship in a way that you go out of this room and think, these are really special people. But it's actually, there's a lot of luck. I mean, we completely overestimate our own influence. I mean, how many times you actually thought, let's go home early, but then you decided, I go to that business event in the evening, and there you, by chance, you met one of the key clients that helped a lot to develop your company. I mean, we should not overestimate how much we actually are contributing, and what is luck, what is stuff that come your way, and you have to recognize it. Of course, you have to recognize it. Also, just let everything pass.
Yeah, but we agree that you can't influence luck too much. You can be persistent, but you can't, you just have to go out there. You just have to play the game, and then you will, eventually you will be lucky. But it's really hard to say, how can I turn luck in my favor? Or are there any very experienced hacks you have, how I can, as a young entrepreneur, can turn luck in my favor?
Well, from my experience, I once heard the quote that the more I work, the luckier I get. Like the more effort I put in, and that's really true, I think. I mean, I had a lot of situations where I could say, okay, we had some success because of that, and this if you trace back how that came, there were like a decision. There was really once one event in the evening where I really thought, oh, I'm so tired. I rather go home. And then for some reason I said, nah, like 15 minutes short drink, and then I go home. And at that evening, I found out how to really increase the number of contacts in the media and advertising industries to really get the network in these potential clients, into these potential clients. And that's how would you say that? This is because I had this genius idea to go to that event, or was it rather like this spontaneous stuff? I mean, that's pure luck, right? I mean, if
you went.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something a lot of entrepreneurs say. It's really hard work.
That's the point.
Like if you think it's just like, we're back on coffee, but maybe it's beer sometimes. But if you just think it's like easy going, then you probably will not achieve what you need to achieve. Like it's really working your ass off and working long nights. And that also brings me back to what you said at the beginning. You said it's maybe easier to do it when you are young. It's not just the ecological footprint, but if you have someone at home, maybe kids or a wife or someone who is waiting for you, it's maybe harder to actually put that additional effort in to then get lucky.
Absolutely. I think you described it well. I mean, it's at the end, it's a lot of effort combined with luck. So I mean, it doesn't make just sense to put a lot of effort in. If you go to that event and then you are not alert on what chances are here, and then go home, then the whole effort doesn't make sense at all, actually. And to what kind of situation you are in, I mean. There are a lot of successful family people who have family who are starting their business too. So I mean, there's no rule, I think.
Of course.
And there, I wouldn't say. I would rather say, of course, you have one dependency less, right? I mean, exactly. You don't need to be at home at 5 because then the kids come back from school. Of course, it is easier, but I wouldn't say that it's not possible to have family and be an entrepreneur. So my two business partners, Pascal and Sylvain, today, they both have family.
Yeah, right. But they are already a little bit advanced. Like now starting,
true, the company is 7 years old, yeah. True.
But maybe give us your personal take on how to be like healthy and how to be in shape to start companies. What are you doing? Like do you have any life hacks that help you be powerful and be energetic every day?
One thing is, I mean, they're pretty simple actually. I mean, if you have a look at the effects of running or just like cardio sports, that's something I do. Like 2 or 3 times a week I run to get all the cortisol and all these stress
hormones.
Yeah, exactly. Down. Stress hormones down levels. The second thing is I like these these calm meditation apps to really have just some minutes in which you are really following your breath and you are really at the moment. Because as an entrepreneur, you always run behind some goals. You are always anticipating stuff in the future, etc. And I think it helps a lot to really consciously be, if it's just a few minutes per day, really constantly be at the present moment. That's really something. And one thing, of course, but this is trivial. I mean the alcohol. I just basically don't drink alcohol. I mean, and you're turning 43 in the fall. I personally just. I just get up harder if I have to.
Because every year you get older.
Exactly.
And probably that changed because you were the party entrepreneur, so you have been probably drinking like a little bit.
Well, not that much actually.
Okay.
Actually, the point.
You always had to work, like when you went to the parties.
I mean, it sounds really nerdy, but actually we were I mean, we were ETH nerds, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were allowed to be nerdy, but it was really one of the things people really liked was that mostly if they woke up on Sunday, the photos were already online.
Okay, got it. So there was no time to be drunk. So you took the pictures, ran home,
exactly,
put them on the server,
published them,
Okay,
and that was really something people appreciated.
Yeah.
And we heard a lot that these things actually differentiated us. So some of the competitors got them online on Monday, Tuesday,
because they were still getting the alcohol out of the blood.
I don't know. I don't want to say that.
Now we got the competitive advantage you had.
So I don't know why. Perhaps just the routine to integrate the photos into the database was a little bit slower. That could also be. I don't know why that was.
Yeah.
But for us, we always saw or at least I can tell it for me. I mean, like the parties always were like a basis to make business, and not just to. Of course, it was fun to be there, but just having fun and having to go back without pictures, that was never. That was something I didn't find fulfilling actually as an entrepreneur. Right. So therefore, it still was some seriousness behind the business. Also because imagine there were like companies like Swisscom, like the big corporates booking advertising on your platform. So there you couldn't just say, yeah, we don't care about what content was on. I mean, we had about 500,000 people every month on the website. So you couldn't just say, we don't care about
we just do party.
What's going on. Yeah, exactly. So then probably this hockey stick would never have happened.
You have, for a startup entrepreneur in Switzerland, a lot of experience already. I think we can say that. Is there any final advice you would give to people who just embark or maybe just started their company?
I think you will never manage if everybody else has to tell you what is the right way. So I think you really have to find your own way, and you have to constantly look for your own way, and not like rely on others to tell you what is right, what works, what doesn't work, etc. I even lost some of the business models because I asked too many people. And a few years later, I see a company who successfully does exactly what I proposed.
Yeah.
And that's really that's annoying actually. Mm-hmm. And if you as a young entrepreneur you have a vision, you see, whoa, that's my passion. I'm sure I can get my talents in there. I'm sure I can get the clients. I'm sure I will do that. Then don't ask for people or don't look for people who tell you that it won't work.
Yeah, you will always find them probably.
Definitely.
These people.
I always compare having a business with flying a plane. There's a lot of stuff you have to do. You have to check, how is my airspeed? How's the attitude of the plane? How much fuel do I have? Where in the mountains the wind is going up, where it will push you down into the rocks. Where are the clouds? So all these internal, how much fuel you have, you can to a certain extent you can put it in yourself. Where are the clouds? You won't be able to determine that yourself. So I mean this situational awareness and really following your guts, following what seems to be okay for you, that's most of the cases you won't get wrong.
Very great closing statement. So great to be here, chat with you. Thanks so much for your time, and I hope to see you again, Markus.
Thanks so much for having me. And let's repeat that with a coffee.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, with a coffee.
With an espresso.
Thank you.
Thank you.